Hello?
Hello, everyone. This
Hi.
is Ariel. Oh, who am I speaking with? There's someone else on the line with me. Hello.
Yes, Judy Todd.
So, unless you're actually presenting for the show, it's wonderful to hear your voice, by the way. I want to start with that. But for the sake of trying to keep everything quiet, if you could mute your machines and your phones had some issues in the past with some noise issues. So, yeah, I'm so glad you're all here. And if you could mute your computers and your phones as you log on, that would be wonderful. All right, so if you're on a phone, muting is how it always is. You can just hit the mute button there on your phone. If you're on the computer, um, I'm hoping I have the same experience as you guys because I know I have a slightly different interface here, but if you can see your own name, so one way to get there is to go to the upper left corner of the screen. And you can click on a little video camera image, and that's where you can control your video and your audio. And there's a button above your video camera and your microphone. You can just click where it says on for the microphone, and that will turn it off. Is that working for you? All right. So, Lee, can you describe what you see? Do you see a little video button in gray above the main on the left corner? Let's see, Sharon, you might be recorded. If you're not presenting, you don't have to allow anything. Because you're not going to need your video camera, you're not going to need your microphone. So just safer just not to allow. Way to go, Lee. Okay, we're getting really close here. I'm going to tune off for just one more minute to check in with everyone here in the room, and we'll get started in just a minute or two.
We are on. Hello, Game Changers.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're really glad you're here. We're here. We're glad you're here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first live community gathering of the January Game Changer Intensive. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Mario Figueros. I am the program manager for the Game Changer Intensive. And, I've gotten to know some of you, and I'm just so happy that you're all here, and we're really excited for our evening. So this is one of two opportunities for us to get together. Our first is just introducing sort of the first part of the course, and then we're going to meet again at the end of the course at another community gathering, and that's where everybody in the entire community is actually invited and can join in. Most of you actually, just about all of you, a significant number have already met in your small groups and the live community gatherings, kind of another level of interaction. So throughout the night, you'll see chats and questions prompted to you and give you different opportunities to actually collaborate.
My name's Tracy Apple. This is our fifth Game Changer Intensive. I've been involved in all of them, and I actually have my job at the Pachamama Alliance is I'm responsible for the content of the intensive and the symposium and our programs. And Mario and I and the team here have been eagerly awaiting this fifth time we're running the intensive. We want to proudly and not braggingly say we think it's getting better and better each time, right?
I think so.
Seriously.
Largely due to the feedback that
Yeah.
we've received actually
Yeah.
from people. We've taken a ton of the information and feedback we've gotten from people and really made some pretty significant changes to the course throughout the 5 sessions that we've done.
So let's just for a minute take a look if we could get a slide up. And this is our first time with this new platform, so you're going to have to forgive us if we've got a little slow on the uptakes on a couple of these things. But right now, we'd love to show a slide that shows what's the purpose of this gathering, if we could.
Actually, I thought we were going to open Sacred Space.
Should we do that first?
Yeah, why don't we start out by Sacred Space?
Okay.
So, for those of you who have been part of the small groups, it's spoken about there, but something that we do at the Pachamama Alliance is open up our meetings, what we call opening sacred space. I don't know if you want to speak to anything else beyond that.
Well, it is often an indigenous tradition, and as those of you who've been around the Pachamama Alliance know, our source, our roots are with the indigenous people, to pause and acknowledge our connection with all time, with nature, with one another. And so it's our practice, certainly for these live gatherings, hopefully in the small meeting groups as well, that we adapt this practice as well, just taking a moment to ground. And I think we have somebody who's going to lead us. Yeah?
Yes, we actually have a special guest. Lee, if you can hear us, we are going to bring you on to the stage momentarily. Lee Riddell is a volunteer moderator in the intensive and a longtime Pachamama Alliance volunteer, and she has agreed to open sacred space for us. As Tracy said, we're going to ask for your patience as we try to bring her on, and give us just a moment here to give it a shot. Well, we gave it our best shot. Thank you so much, Lee. If you'll allow us, we're going to actually go ahead and open Sacred Space. But I will say, you know, I spoke to Lee just before we got on, and she let me know that out in the East Coast, she had already opened Sacred Space. So she said to let everybody know, in case there were technical problems, that Sacred Space is open.
Great. So if you don't mind, would you close your eyes just for a minute, if you're comfortable, if you're in a place. Somebody said they were in Pete's. Maybe you don't want to close your eyes in Pete's. But for the rest of us, just close our eyes for a moment. And first assignment is just breathe. Just breathe and notice yourself breathing. And notice your feet. Why don't you put them straight on the floor, flat? And notice that underneath whatever floor you're on, there's an earth. There is the earth. And notice that above your head is probably a ceiling, but above that are the heavens, and then the universe. And just for a moment, feel yourself as this connection between the heavens and the earth. And allow yourselves to feel the connection with the other people who are using modern technology to connect. And to realize that we're connected not just technologically, but we are connected in spirit right now. We're connected in intention, and we're connected at the level of heart. So if you'll just notice yourself taking another breath. And realize that 120 other people right now are breathing with you. As we open this gathering of people who are enrolled in the Game Changer Intensive and who have a deep, abiding desire to actually make a difference in this world. All right, with one more breath, could you open your eyes, please? Thank you. You know, and as you read, if you're looking at some of the chats, you'll see from time to time, people's sound goes in and out. You may experience situations like that. For the most part, they tend to get resolved during the call. So just let's stay with it, and we'll keep going.
Great. So again, welcome everybody. You know, I'm not sure you know this, but there are countries from across the world represented in the Game Changer Intensive. We have participants from across the globe, and including tonight, we're actually going to talk a little bit about that momentarily. But just kind of wanted to frame what this gathering is about. You know, for one thing, it's a chance to hear from us, to see, you know, our faces, to see the folks behind the design of this course. A chance for you to engage each other, and we've created some ways for interaction, given the technology, that will hopefully allow for some sense of community. And then also to dive deeper into the material. And we'll be doing that by covering different topics. And actually, Bill Twist, the CEO and founder of the Pachamama Alliance, is going to be with us and covering some areas that the course touches on. So, you know, the gathering is really a time for all of us to come together, for you to see us, for us to see you, and for all of you to come together and share in this experience. So, should we talk about the slide for the gathering? Do we have that?
For the purpose?
Yeah.
Well, I'll read it, and let's see, Ariel, see if you've got a slide about what specifically we want to be accomplishing. Well, first let's use this one. This, just in case you weren't sure, where are we? What is this thing anyway? Here are the 7 modules. Introduction to Game Changing, you've done that one. Power of Story, you have done. Many of you have posted discussion forum posts. You've had your small group meeting on that module. A couple of you have gone into module number 3, Evolutionary Activism, which just was made available to you last night. And then you'll see where we're going. After Evolutionary Activism, you see we're heading for Grounded Optimism. By the way, let me interrupt for a minute to say, we poll people at the end. which is your favorite module? And we're always clear that there's going to be one that everyone's going to say is their favorite. And you know what? That has still never happened. For some reason, different people love all of them. So anyway, grounded optimism is one of my favorites, but okay. We then move into module 5, and that's the rigged game, a very juicy module, very, very juicy module. We go to module 6 is when we focus specifically on the game-changing movements. Game-changing movements. And then the final module, module 7, going forth, is where you actually take the time, energy, and resources and craft your own plan for moving forth in the world with the tools you now have. So that's the overview. Anything else you want to say about the flow?
You know, the only thing I'll say is, we sort of talk about the Game Changer Intensive as focused on 2 main questions. How should we be, and what do we need to do at this critical time in human history? So, we sort of imagine the course is broken up into 2 halves. You're currently in the first half, which is really the domain of being, and that lasts all the way up until about module 4. At module 5, it pivots to looking at the external world, the rigged game. So that's the only thing, is the sort of general flow of the course begins with the domain of being and closes with the domain of doing.
And in some of your applications and some of the discussion forum postings, which we were reading the last few days, a couple of you acknowledged that that's so valuable. You so appreciate that here we're talking about changing the game, but we're doing it with a deep understanding that we also need to change who we are as well as the game out there. It isn't just out there, and it's also not just in here. So that's part of what you're going to be dealing with as this course goes on. And here's what we're doing tonight. The purpose of this particular gathering is to provide a forum for Game Changer Intensive participants, to experience themselves as a community engaged in doing the inner and outer work needed to change the dream of the modern world and to change the game and the cultural story underpinning it. So this is a forum where we start to do the work of experiencing ourselves as the community who will be actually doing this work in this intensive.
Wonderful. Why don't we actually get down to some business and go through what we're actually going to cover during this call. We can bring up our agenda. So just to give you a sense of what our evening is going to look like together. So we're currently in the middle of giving an overview, just given some of the arc of the intensive journey through the course, the different modules that we go through, the different domains that we cover. Next, I'm going to go through a technical orientation just to familiarize you with the platform that we're on. We're going to follow that with some interactive activities, some real fun ways of just hearing what is the pulse, what's going on out there, where are people coming from, and using some of the technology that's available to us to interact. Then we'll invite Bill Twist to come on. He's got some comments to make, and then we're actually going to open it up to a Q&A. And we'll close off. This is meant to go till about 7 o'clock Pacific time, so we hope to end at about that time. And we'll actually leave the chat logs open because hopefully by then you'll actually be pretty engaged with each other, and we'll give you a few more minutes to engage on the chats. Incidentally, we are going to have the chats available and the video of this meeting available online on the course. So, if you're having a hard time keeping up with the chats or having a hard time following whatever it is we're saying, or you want to review it, it'll be available to you probably by tomorrow. So if you can just sort of look around you on this platform that you're on, it's called Neuro. You're kind of on the cutting edge of online learning. You've probably heard a ton about it. This bringing hundreds of people together, we're at 135 people on the phone right now from across the world, is actually just in the beginning stages of being developed. So we're on this platform right now, and I just wanted to point out a few of the tools that are available to you if it's not totally obvious. I see some of you are already engaged with the chat logs, which is great. If anybody hasn't seen it yet, up toward the top right of your screen is a little bubble that says chat. It looks like little call-out bubbles. If you click on that, you'll actually be able to see the chats going through. Just to the right of that is a person with a question mark. Now, this is going to be really important when Bill Twist comes on, because this is how you're going to be able to pose questions for him to answer throughout the course. Now, a word about those questions. Not everybody can see them. We're the only ones who can see them. So don't get worried if you post your question and nobody else can see it. That's how it's meant to be.
Which is different from the chat.
Yeah.
So we're distinguishing the chat from the questions. The chat you can see and is a running commentary. When we do question and answers, rather than calling on you live, we'll ask you to type in that box, and not everyone will see those questions.
One note to the folks joining by phone, hello, hello, hello. You obviously can't see these tools that we're talking about, so just sit tight and enjoy the ride. Again, you can watch this video tomorrow, and please, please, please mute your phone. Double check that you have muted your phone. It's one of the only things that we actually can't do in terms of controlling you. We can't mute you, so please do so we can get through on this. And speaking of getting through, one note about the chats. So they're really fun. A lot of you have already used them, but one of the things that we've found for folks is that it's hard to have two conversations at the same time. So do your best to focus on what we're going through. We're definitely going to give you a chance to chat with other folks. But just be aware that it can be a little bit of a distraction. And keep your focus on one conversation at a time. And finally, again, this point of being on the cutting edge of technology, we wish we could dialogue with you. We wish we could see you and get, 138 images of webcams getting on, but technology just isn't there yet. So, in the meantime, we've done our best to create exercises and different questions that'll elicit and give us a chance to hear from each other. And we hope the technology will evolve soon enough that we can see 138 people, where they're coming from, and actually hear your voices. So, and one final thing, so again, Ariel spoke to this. I didn't mention the raising your hand, which is on the right of all of those that little chat box. You can raise your hand for different things. It tells us to pay attention to you. So either Ariel, who's managing all of the technology, or we can know that you've got something to say. So we are going to try our first quick polling round. And Ariel, I'm going to ask you to bring up the first quick poll. So in a moment, you're going to actually see the quick poll on your screen come up. You'll see the quick poll come up on your screen, so this is how it's supposed to be. And you're going to actually have the opportunity to pick an option. So bear with us as we get ready for that and we load it up. And Ariel is on her way to do that right now.
Can I say something?
Please.
Unscripted while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to publicly acknowledge my partner here, Mario, who is not only an extraordinary human being, brilliant manager, but he actually understands technology and is committed to having technology serve the work of Game Changing. And I just wanted to say it's a privilege and a joy to work with you.
For anybody who knows Tracy Apple, this is a huge, huge compliment, so thank you. And here you have your first quick poll. Chocolate, strawberry, vanilla. Pick a side.
Pick a flavor.
Pick a flavor. So we have people loading this up right now. I don't know. So you can actually see the graph loading if you vote. So go ahead and click your option to vote. Chocolate has got a commanding lead at 68%.
Yes!
Vanilla at a distant second of 22%, and strawberry way behind.
It isn't that we actually think this is highly important for Game Changers. What we're trying to do here is just demonstrate that we can use this poll function, because we're going to be using it throughout the evening. And it appears that many people have mastered it. Not everyone. If you haven't voted, see if you can figure out how to indicate your preference.
Yeah, we've got about 140 people on right now. It looks like about 90 people, almost 90, have voted so far. So this is just a chance to get comfortable and familiar with using this tool.
And sorry, again, people phoning in, you can just tell yourself what you liked or you don't get to see it.
All right, so why don't we try another quick poll? So this is really our first real question to use the quick polls, and this has to do with online learning. So in just a moment, this will come up. So let us know, this is my first online course, yes or no? So already we've got a few people on. You know, I'll just say from interacting with people, this is a lot of folks' first time that I have seen on an online environment, and it's really interesting to see this. Of the 140 people who are on the call, about 74% of them have actually done an online course before.
And hooray for the 22 who haven't and are willing to jump over whatever hurdles and confusions to make your way to this gathering, to the material on the website, to your small meeting group. Thank you, thank you. You know, if we did everything in person at this point, this thing would just stay too small, you guys. So for those of us for whom it's a little bit of a challenge, thank us all for our patience, forbearance.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's have one more poll right now. You do have small meeting groups. Hopefully you know that. You've been assigned one. And here's the poll we're going to post right now, which is, how is it going? So here are the choices. Number 1, love them. They're the best part so far. Another choice, they're fine. Glad I've done them. Another choice, and you're allowed to tell the truth, by the way. You know, seriously. We'll take the feedback. We'll take it. Disappointing. Another choice would be, I've had major technical problems. And the final choice, which 3 people have already acknowledged, is but small group gatherings. So we're showing that we do know how to use this polling function. Excellent. We're showing that there are at least 3 people who are going to want to contact us after this to let us know that you're having trouble finding your small group meeting. 16 people are loving them. Now, from the other 4 intensives, let me tell you, far and above, the small group meetings tend to be, at the end, people's favorite part of the whole intensive. You know, and frankly, we didn't know that. We didn't know to expect that. But the chance to be working on the material we're working on in the intensive and to do it with other people, even, quote, strangers, somehow we stop being strangers at some point in the middle of the intensive. So please do make every effort you can to be in your small meeting group. If you are not able to be there, please email someone from your group so that they're not thinking you just kind of lost interest all of a sudden. There are moderators. For the most part, small groups had a moderator to kind of kick you off, and that you'll be invited to each moderate. And for some people, it's like, oh man, I never moderated before. And then in the end, they say, it was great. So you may find yourself moderating. Basically, just be sure and do everything you can to be in your small meeting group. The other thing, again, this comes from the feedback. A bunch of people have said, I wish I had created a buddy in my small meeting group, like just one person who could kind of be my Game Changer Intensive buddy. If that appeals to you at all, please consider this permission and an invitation for you to contact someone else in your group and say, hey, could I check in with you during the week sometimes, or however you might want to use each other's buddies. You're certainly welcome to set that up if you like.
And I also want to acknowledge, and it's actually coming up in some of the chats, is that this is, you know, we're working with technology. There's something different to be said from, you know, sitting in a room with folks as opposed to connecting online. So, you know, 2 things that I'll say. On the course website, there's a tech help button. Please use it. We're here to serve you in any way that we can, solve any issues that we can. If you're having technical problems, we can probably help you solve them. So let us know issues that you're having. I know that I think the first or second week we had some issues. We got those ironed out, so they should be pretty solid. But, you know, you're working with technology, so there can be challenges. Get us involved. We'd be happy to help you out.
Okay, so who's in this course with you? There's you, and who else? I want to read a few excerpts from the applications. You remember you sent in an application Are we okay, Ariel? All right. So just to get a sense, who else is here? Now, I just have to say, Mara has been talking about this evening. It isn't this evening for everybody. You can hang on those for just a minute. For the people in Europe, and we've already had one person from Poland say he's on, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So what about that? Not to mention the people in Australia and New Zealand for whom it's already tomorrow. So we already know we're not all in the same place, and we're going to look at some demographics in just a minute. But here's a couple of things we pulled out from the applications. So just let this sink in a little bit. Who's in here? What's on people's mind as they're taking the course? Somebody said, the question was, what's your personal statement? And the question was, or the comment was, I yearn to be part of a larger community. You'll see there's also one of them is up here on the screen. Those of you on the phone, this one says, it sounds to me like the Game Changer Intensive links the inside me and the outside worlds. Somebody else said, I want to make a difference. I want to help make a change. You know, and I was frankly surprised to hear how many people are reviewing the intensive. And we choose to interpret that as great positive statement. People saying they loved it. They got so much out of it, they wanted to do it again. So there are a bunch of people reviewing it. Here, for those of you on the phone, here's another one that somebody said, which is, I'd like to meet people who have similar goals of making a difference and changing the status quo, but who are coming at it from different angles. One man said, I've now been too long sitting on my duff. And for those of you for whom American English is not your first language, duff would be the place you sit on, place of your body. Okay, so I have now been too long sitting on my duff and longing to participate in a movement that can make a difference. Someone else said, this is the answer to what keeps me awake at night. Then the one on the screen now says, in light of recent events, I feel that I have to make a choice between despair and hope, and this training is me reaching for hope. So can we see the PowerPoint? You can just see another way of looking at who's in the course.
So, you know, this actually always astounds me. So what you're looking at is a visual representation of the entire globe and where they're coming from in terms of enrollment in the intensive. So as you can see, we have almost 90% of folks come from North America, but we've got folks from Australia and Europe, from Asia and Africa. We've got a good representation of people from South America. So, you know, as you've probably seen, a lot of the voices, and as we get into the movements, a lot of the movements are focused on North America, but so many of the messages and the principles behind it are really relevant at an international scale. So to all of the folks, as Tracy said, where it's 3 o'clock in the morning or it's tomorrow, welcome, good morning, and I'm so glad that you're here with us. Get the next slide. So I'll just walk you through some of these. There's a lot of information here. So we got about 380 people who are actively engaged in the course right now. And this gives a sense of their age distribution and their gender distribution. So, you know, one of the things that we've seen pretty consistently throughout the 5 courses that we've done is that women outnumber men pretty significantly. So in this course, it's about 3 to 1. And folks,
just a coincidence.
So for all of the men on the phone, well done. Spread the word. And people above 35 really represent the bulk of the course. And actually 65 and over are the biggest percentage of people. For those of you on the phone, 24% of the participants are 65 or over. 23% are represented by people between 55 and 64. So about half of the course are over 55, so welcome. And to the folks between 18 and 24, there are about 7% of you. So happy that you're here and interested in hearing your feedback. So most definitely let us know how this is relevant and what you're getting out of it. Get the next slide.
That's you.
This is a small sampling of all the folks that are actually taking the course right now. We went through your profiles. For those of you who actually completed a profile, thank you. You know, surprisingly, surprising to us, we heard over and over again that people really appreciated when participants fleshed out their profile. So we took some of those pictures, we posted them here. As you can see, people from all walks of life are really part of this course. So there's a quick little visual sample of some of the people involved.
Great. Thank you. It's ready for our next poll, please. Let's put up the poll on discussion forums.
Discussion forum poll.
So again, for those of us who are new to the whole technology online course, the discussion forum, it says discussion, but what we really mean is a written discussion. And it's the place where you get to read through the content of the course, and then there are a couple times in the course where we ask you to weigh in on various matters. So here are the questions. What's been your participation in the written discussion forums to date? Choice number 1 is they are interesting and engaging. Choice number 2, I've read, but I haven't posted. Next choice, I'm really not quite sure how they work. Next choice, I can't read all the words on my screen. I think it says, I'd like to post, but you know, I just don't have time. And then someone else for whom says, you know, they're just not my thing.
So, you know, one of the things that I just want to post, if it's not totally obvious to you, you know, the beauty of the discussion forums is that you can sit back and really formulate your whole idea. And they're meant to, as the people that are in your discussion forums, and there are about 50 people in every discussion forum, are each in different small groups. So it's a way of kind of expanding the people in your small groups and interacting with them week to week. And a different sort of way of engaging with the material. Again, you can sit back and, as you've seen, if you've read them, actually formulate your own idea. One of the things I really loved is somebody created a little graphic of the 12 guide principles of spiritual leadership. It's really beautiful and posted it on there. So again, just a great way to actually spend some time thinking about things.
Yeah, and a couple people let us know I'm just not a good writer. I'm embarrassed. It's uncomfortable. Totally fine. Even if you just commented on somebody else's post, then maybe you're not the one who is going to formulate an idea, but maybe you could just say, well, that was interesting, or thank you for posting that. So it just builds the community and it builds a sense of connection. Because you don't have access to everybody's post, as Mario says, you have access to about 50 people. Is that right? About 50? 48 people, and we're over 300 in the course. I wanted to let you have a feel for how the course is going for some of the other people in the course who may not be in your group. So I'm just going to read you a few excerpts from the discussion forum posts from the last 2 modules. So, tears of joy that I have finally found a mindset, a movement, and a purpose to supplant my singularly money-focused lifestyle, to use my passion and creativity to empower myself and others, to foster a socially just, environmentally sustainable, life-affirming human presence on this planet. And tears of relief that I'm not alone. Somebody else on the discussion forum about democracy said, take back our democracy? Really? Did we ever have a democracy?
I think that's a good one for Bill.
Somebody else said, changing the systems of the world is a daunting task. I signed up for the intensive in order to make some sense of it all and to find a way in which I can participate in the acceleration of the healing of the planet rather than its destruction. I can't say things make any more sense to me now or that I've suddenly come up with answers, but at least I have regained some hope and I'm committed to staying awake and conscious. Jessica said, what I found is that people are more willing than I even thought to take action, but they simply don't have the tools to envision something new. Someone else said, again, about democracy, Is it even possible to think of democracy in the face of a rigged game? How do you do that? Someone else talked about her experience with political engagement, and she says, any time that I've stretched myself into political awareness, I found myself frustrated, grossly disappointed, and then immobilized. All right, that was on the democracy discussion forum. A couple more. This is the one on spiritual leadership. Hopefully you did have time to read the spiritual leadership and the qualities of a game changer from the first module. Very, very important documents. And you probably have noticed certain documents and videos are starred in the coursework. Those are the ones we think, if you do nothing else this week, please get to those. And the spiritual leadership was one. And here's somebody said, for most of my life, I've been hiding from a broken heart. And when I finally connected with this situation and allowed the pain in, and got on with life, I found my way here. And somebody, again, you're totally welcome to do this on these posts. She quoted someone, and she's quoted Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who says, if only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But
Wow.
The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?
Wait, a participant wrote that?
No, she quoted a brilliant. I just read Regina or somebody saying, I'm sure they're working hard to get us back. Thank you for your faith that we hadn't just lost interest mid-course. We did not lose interest, but we did lose connection. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to reread that beautiful speech, but it's there in the discussion forum. And one thing I want to point out in terms of discussion forums, again, what you write can be read by the 48 people in your discussion forum group. If you have something that you want the entire community to read and you think it'd be useful, there's a button on the right, is it, of the home screen called Great Stuff. Post it there. Anything you think is great. And you know what, Barbara, I might even ask you if you wouldn't mind posting Sandra's beautiful talk there so then everyone can read it on their own time.
So let's hear from you again. We've got another poll that we'd like to do. Let's bring up the next poll, number 5. So what do you think is the most pressing issue in the U.S. now? And
We're going to give you some choices.
Yeah, so government dysfunction, climate change, GMOs and industrial agriculture, the situation in the Middle East, racial tension, the underlying story of separation. So for those of you on the phone, the question is, what do you think is the most pressing issue in the US now? And there are 6 different options. And right now, overwhelmingly, this underlying story of separation is what people are naming. At about 58% of people identify that as the most pressing issue in the US right now, followed by climate change at about 23% of everybody who's responding. Some of you may notice a little hiccup in the bandwidth or in our sound when the polls come up. Thank you for bearing with us. And so you can see it refreshing if you've voted. So starting with the underlying story of separation, by far what most people identify at about 56% of people identified that as the key issue. And climate change, about 21% of you identified that.
Particularly people on the East Coast right now who are freezing to death.
And government dysfunction at about 16% of you. Lots of very interesting issues and very interesting perspectives. Yes to democracy, yes to climate change, and yes to the way that the power of story and our separateness actually sort of ties all of that together. So I am going to give my seat.
Good. Let's see. Bill, do you want to come up? And then I'll introduce you. I think you've met Bill by video in some of the preparation work, but this is Bill Twist. He is one of the co-founders of the Pachamama Alliance and the CEO of the organization. And he's also the person really who created this whole game changer intensive idea, who was most sensitive to the cries of people who've taken symposiums for years and years and years and said, yeah, but now what? Okay, now what, now what, now what? And for years and years and years, we did not have an answer. And now we do, and it's this game changer intensive. But really, the other thing to know about Bill is that he spent quite a bit of time in the rainforest working with our partners there and getting to the heart of the matter of where did we all come from in terms of the rainforest, in terms of the heart of life, what's going on there, what is it we are doing in the rest of the world that impacts that, and what can any one little organization or one little individual do in the face of all of that. So to my left is one of the most heroic people I know, and we've asked him to just talk extemporaneously a little bit to you about where we came from as an organization, what's in front of us now, and basically anything you want to say.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, and it's great to be here with all of you. There was a reflection came up when I was listening to the polls, and the number of people who are in this course right now, who are older, over 65. There's actually an awareness in the social movement building organizations now that people like that are really important. And one of the reasons they're important is because they can afford to get arrested in a civil disobedience and it doesn't go on their job records. So we have actually a real potential army here. Young people are great, but people who's got their careers well grounded and behind them have a lot of flexibility and degrees of freedom for getting involved really actively in movement building. So I was congratulating us on having that makeup, right? You know, I think Tracy asked about me commenting on where the Game Changer Intensive came from. And it really is a part of the work that we've been doing, what I consider our work, the Pachamama Alliance's work, to be part of the great work that Thomas Berry, a cultural historian, talked about, the great work for humanity at this time in evolutionary history is to self-navigate a transition from being a destructive presence on the planet to a mutually enhancing human-Earth relationship. And that's the frame that the Pachamama Alliance works within. We were asked to engage in that by our indigenous partners 20 years ago. They didn't use the phrase, they didn't know about Thomas Berry. They didn't use the phrase the great work. They used the phrase change the dream of the modern world, or change the dream of the North. But everything we are doing is really aimed at fulfilling our role as part of this great work that we human beings are tasked with now. And it's not work that only the Pachamama Alliance is doing. It's work that a lot of organizations are doing. The intensive added a whole aspect to what we created originally with our Awakening the Dreamer program, which was about waking people up and creating a shift in consciousness, a shift in being. And what we at some point realized was that although critical and an essential part of any kind of social transformation, that a shift in consciousness was not enough, that it needed to be coupled with action, with activism, with engagement on the ground. And what the Game Changer Intensive is aimed at doing is continuing to ground people in a sense of connection to the earth, a sense of responsibility for our future, and beginning to mobilize them into action. So it was really great. I got a chance to read the discussion forums. Tracy read some of the examples just a little while ago. I got a chance to go through them, and it's just really inspiring to see that what's motivating people to be engaged in the intensive is exactly that, the chance to really make a difference with our lives and to shape the future for humanity. So I'm really, really pleased to be here with a group of people who are so turned on and creative and inspired by what's possible with us working together. There were kind of two things that came up in looking at the discussion forums, two difficult ideas, difficult themes, are difficult to get our hands around. And we're not saying we have the answer to this issue of engaging in action where it looks like, we use the phrase a rigged game, and some people have pointed out, well, gosh, if you say a rigged game, it sounds like there's somebody rigging it, and if there's somebody rigging it, creating a sense of separation. So you're building in this idea of a them and us, which is antithetical to the basic premise of our interconnectedness and co-responsibility for our future. So I think that's a really interesting observation. It's important for us to see that when we say there's a rigged game and it's being rigged, I don't think it's being rigged. Well, we should try out the perspective. It's not being rigged by people. It's being rigged by a perspective, a point of view. Often we get access to what that point of view might be by looking at unexamined assumptions. But there are points of view in the world. There are ideologies that are inconsistent with or incompatible with an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just world. And it's important for us to notice that those ideologies, those points of view, those commitments do exist out there. And it's not necessarily the people who are espousing them that are generating them. They're being generated from a deeper place. And that's why you'll look at story and the power of story in our modules, and I guess that's one of the modules you just did. So I wanted to read something that I saw several days ago that kind of ties in with this, and Well, there's a long paragraph, but I want to just read the end where he's talking about how the baby boomer movement out of the kind of the shutdown in the 60s after Kent State, after the Chicago Democratic Convention, after kind of pushback from the Pentagon, people really started questioning whether their activism was too angry and shifted to self-improvement that was resurrected as a road to collective change. And this was a comment from Tim DeChristopher. Tim DeChristopher, if some of you know, was a really skilled activist who got involved and was arrested for disrupting the oil and mineral leases that the U.S. government was doing that were set up to be a giveaway of our global commons. But his comment was espousing connection as a philosophy is not enough. Acting collectively for everyone's sake is a must. And so this.
Could you read that again?
He said, this was in reaction to us looking at digging into self-improvement. He said self-improvement was resurrected as the road to collective change because people were concerned that our activism we were too angry. So self-improvement was resurrected as the road to collective change. Yet he can see that there's a more authentic spirituality is based in a group ethos, and espousing connection as a philosophy is not enough. Acting collectively for everyone's sake is a must. So this issue of our connectedness, of us all being one, is a powerful place to stand, but we need to notice also that that we may need to act in ways where not everyone is acting collectively, but not everyone's acting together. There's some people that disagree, and I don't know how you square that, but it's important that we keep that frame in mind. That yes, separation, the myth of separation is a disabling myth, but it exists, and it's created ideologies and perspectives in the world that we'll have to learn how to deal with. So I congratulate the discussion forum on grappling with this. It's a tough issue that it'll be important for us to deal with. I also want to read something else because in the poll that came up, I think the poll we said separation was the highest, climate change, democracy. I want to quote something from Bill Moyers when Bill Moyers had one of his last public shows, and one of the things he said on it, in the final word, let's see, the greatest challenge we face in America today, this is Bill Moyers in final word on one of his last shows, the greatest challenge we face in America today is to stop the buying and selling of our politicians and political processes by corporations and the rich. Either we reverse Citizens United and insist democracy is about equal representation, or we might as well close up shop. So for me, the issue of democracy the issue of democracy, and I want to say more about that issue because it's bigger than democracy. But it's a critical issue for us to tackle if we're going to actually build an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just world. I wished in the piece that you watched at the beginning of the intensive, where I talked about the rigged game and democracy. I used the phrase a couple times. I think I kind of slipped and said it's about reclaiming our democracy, as if implying that we maybe had a democracy. And actually the world has never had the governing structure that we human beings are yearning for. That is essential. I say it's essential that we achieve if we're going to be able to be in a position of responsibility and build the world we want. You know, historically there's always been oligarchs and people dominating other people, and the danger is when we when we notice that, if we think of it as a given that that's the way just the way the world is, then we get trapped in thinking, well, that's just the way the world's going to be. And I want to propose that democracy is an evolutionary process, or this concept of democracy is an evolutionary process, and that we've been moving towards it for thousands of years, away from kings and marauding invaders dominating civilization, to feudalism, to the age of reason, where we started recognizing the value of the human being, and out of that grew this concept of democracy. Democracy is an idea that we human beings together collectively can make the best decisions for ourselves. So in the United States, 225 years ago, whatever it was, we launched a great experiment, and we obviously didn't get it right. There were many things that were done when we created our democracy in this country where we excluded whole sectors of we the people. Over time, we've included more and more of those sectors that were excluded. But something we did try and do right at the beginning was we actually made a real point of excluding corporations and artificial persons from getting power in our democratic processes. And over time, as we've expanded our democracy to include more and more people, over time, the protections that were built into our democracy that kept corporations and artificial persons from having undue influence in our political processes have been eroded. And so the movement that Bill Moyers refers to when he talks about overturning Citizens United, that's one of the legal acts that our Supreme Court passed that even moved us further down the road of a corporate control of our political process. So we're going to get into that later in the intensive, and hopefully by the time you go through Module 6 in the intensive, if we do the survey again.
Seven.
Oh, 7, Module 7, if we do the survey again, you'll see that how we deal with this issue of governance and democracy is a really critical issue.
And by we, I don't think Bill means the Pachamama Alliance. I think he means you.
Yeah.
He means us as community. Mario's posting some questions on the border, and one of them is, how has the Game Changer Intensive changed from the beginning? At the beginning, this is to be totally frank, Bill was so super clear that we needed to be willing to kind of get our feet wet or dirty by entering the realm of politics. And many of us who've been around the Pachamama Alliance from the beginning, it's like, politics? Ooh, we're not interested, or that's not how we want to change the world, or that's not me, politics. And as the intensive has gone on, we've had more or less emphasis on what I don't think you've changed at all in what you think is needed, but it's like our reaction as a community. It's like, do I really need to, in order to be a game changer, can I just work on my own perspective and on my story? I guess this is a question for you, Bill. Or do I actually need to be out there engaging with, quote, what we're calling game-changing movements? Is that essential from your point of view?
Well, I think it's essential that we get more people engaged in the public policy arena. It's not necessarily that everybody has to. There are people who that really would be anathema to, and their constitution is much better at educating or raising awareness with people. But we just need to have more people engaged in the process of establishing public policy. It's where the power resides, and it's where the future is going to get created. So the purpose of this is to get more people engaged. And I don't want to say everybody has to, but everybody ought to understand. What I would hope would come out of this is that everybody understands the lever point and the critical point that democracy, this idea of democracy, which I want to keep saying it bigger. It's the issue of us human beings as a species choosing a method of making decisions collectively so that the will and collective intelligence of our species can be used to direct our future.
Great. So if you do have a question, I think Ariel in the chat has let you know that you want to click on which thing do they click on, Ariel? If they want to, you just, where there's a question mark, and then you type. And then your question will be visible here. We'll put it up on the board, and so we'll consider questions. So click on the question mark, type in your question. And then in the meantime, Bill, if I could ask you, the next module that some of you have opened, but many of you have not yet, is called Evolutionary Activism. And while we're seeing if anyone has a question for you on what you've already said, is there anything you want to say by way of introduction to what is this concept of evolutionary activism and how important would you say it is?
I think it's really cool. I think the whole concept of evolutionary activism is really cool. So people will get into it, and they'll see, and they can make their own interpretations. But it's basically a frame that is consistent with what our scientific understanding of how the process of evolution works, and how we humans are not something separate that was placed on the planet at some point after the planet evolved, but that we humans have evolved with the planet and are emerging out of the evolutionary process of the cosmos, and that at this place in the universe where our Earth exists and where life exists here as we know it, that we as a species are becoming a species with a special responsibility and a special power. It's obvious that natural selection, the process of natural selection, is not directing the evolutionary process here anywhere near as much as human cultural selection is. And with that realization, with that recognition, comes an awesome responsibility, both an awesome responsibility and an inspiring and ennobling recognition of who we are as human beings. So I think the whole module of evolutionary activism, I would say, is a extremely inspiring and uplifting module. So I hope people enjoy it.
That's great. One person had a question about this distinction called striking at the root. That what game-changing, that from our point of view in the Pachamama Alliance, when we talk about game-changing, we're talking about actually getting at the root, maybe not striking, maybe that's too violent an image, but actually getting at the root. And she was saying, well, what about all these branches? Seems like I should be hacking at the branches too. Do you have anything you want to say about getting at the root if you really want to change the game versus what about, you see branches everywhere you look?
Well, I think that comes from that Thoreau quote that there's 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who strikes at the roots. So yeah, there are 1,000 things we could improve on this planet. There's 1,000 things we could improve in our city, let alone on our planet. I mean, everywhere you look, there's something that we could be doing better. The issue is, I think the issue is, it's easy for us to find those, and it's easy for us to get engaged in those, and it's difficult. If there's 1,000 things for us to get engaged in, it's difficult for us to spend the time to look underneath and find if there's an underlying leverage point to pull on. And so that's what we're really encouraging with this idea of the game-changing movements and striking at the root, or getting at the root, is not telling people that we shouldn't be involved with the branches, but that we need to amass enough energy that we can have a breakthrough somewhere. If we just are working on the branches out on the surface, we can't penetrate deep down into where the source of our societal dysfunction is. And so that's why we've that's why we're encouraging people to really concentrate on these two issues, democracy and the issue of breaking our reliance on carbon-based fuels for addressing climate change. So that if we get enough people working on those, we can have a breakthrough, and the breakthrough in those issues will essentially give us access to working on the branches much more effectively then.
Great, thank you. We'll do just a couple more questions. And you may not want to answer this, but it's here, so I'm going to throw it at you. Bill, when do you think we'll be able to manifest authentic, true representative democracy? And do you think it's going to happen through the internet? Two separate questions, but from the same person.
Well, the fact that we have an internet is one of the reasons that people are re-energized to really try and put in place now the image of what a democratic society could be. You know, the idea of democracy when we created it, and when it was first created into a political system, 2 centuries ago, I mean, it was such a stretch. Most people couldn't read. Most people, we didn't have any way to get information to people. There was really no way to form collective, quick decisions and gather the wisdom of the crowd. So the internet is a huge game changer, and I think absolutely is part of what makes this democracy movement possible. So it's the fact that we have that. It encourages us all to keep working on this, or to work on it from a renewed space.
Great. Okay, well, I think we're round about out of time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all of it. Thanks for having there be a Pachamama Alliance for us all to participate in.
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy, and thanks everybody for being on this call. It's really great. It's exciting to me just to know there's a growing group of people working on this stuff together. So thank you all very much.
That's great. Okay. We're coming to our last 20 minutes or so together. I'm going to go to a quick poll as Mario returns. And here's the question.
Really interesting results here. So we've got about 43% of you have been involved with some causes. You know, I appreciate it. Almost nobody said, I care a lot but don't have time. But we've got some of you, and we hope that throughout this course you find some way of getting involved. We've got other, which is about 13%, and 12% of you, you know, I'd like to, but don't know what to do. A lot of special attention and love to you in particular. You know, we talked about the overview of the course. The course is going to end with, we call it going forth into activism or into action. And it's going to end with developing different ways that you can actually get into action. And it may look in any number of different ways for you, but we'll definitely give you some options of what you can do.
Okay, so thank you for your participation with the polls. We're going to now try one of the other functions, the chat. So look and see where it says the word chat on the right. And in a minute, we're going to ask you to just, we're going to post something. We're going to ask you to write your response. Now, because there are 130 of us on the call, you're not going to be able to read everything, but we want to get everyone to respond, and then later, we're going to keep the line open for a little bit. You can go in and read, and you can come back and look tomorrow. But here's the question we'd love for everybody to answer right now in the chat, in that little box, which is, how are you taking what you've been getting from this course out into the world? So, Aria, you got the other one up there? Can we switch it? Yeah. So don't look at what was on the screen. Just listen to what I said, which is, since you started this intensive, how have you been taking what you've been getting, what you've been learning, your insights out into the world? So just pause for a moment. And then please let your fellow members of this community see in writing your response.
And again, you know, one of the things that we have found is we're going to see a lot of rich things in this chat log. So really sit with this question. How are you taking what you've learned? Or as Tracy said, you know, what have you taken out into the world from this course? And really sit with that, ponder it, and then share it with us in the chat log. And like I said in the beginning, this chat log will be available online, so you can see all of the incredible things that people are actually involved with.
Yeah. So some of the feedback we got last time was, you know, I don't want to wait till Module 7 to get into action. I want to be moving into action as I go along. So this is in some ways a little incentive, a little encouragement for you as you go through the modules to see, you know, are you waiting to the end, or can you, is there some way you can be actually using this in your life and affecting the people around you and the ideas around you? Okay, so we'll be quiet for a minute so we can read, one and all. Changing how I am on the inside.
Heard a lot of people saying in different ways of basically just talking about the ideas, sharing it with people. You know, this is before there was the internet. That's how things went viral. You shared it with your community. They shared it with their community, and the word spread like that.
It's a great.
Hello, Paula.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to put another chat up there right now, if you could. And I'm going to ask you not to write on it anything yet. For those of you on the phone, it says, what would I or what do I need to do to put myself in my stretch zone during this course, during the intensive? Please don't respond to that one yet. And let me remind you from the first module, when we talked about there's this thing called our comfort zone, where all of us have, where, you know, we're comfortable, we're kind of good people maybe, and we're just, yeah. And then there's this area called your panic zone, where like just no way, it's just not going to happen. You can't go there. You couldn't get yourself to go there for $1 million. No. And then in between, though, is this thing called the stretch zone. Our premise, our supposition is that all change happens when we're in our stretch zone. It does not happen when we're in our comfort zone. So Mario and I are just deep encouragers for ourselves and for you, to encourage you during this intensive to actively put yourself into your stretch zone. And we don't know you well enough to tell you how to do it, but that's the challenge, that's the invitation. So, and the question is, what would you need to do to put yourself in your stretch zone, given this course, this is not a small course. You may have noticed the topic of this course is not some small, tiny topic or issue. It's kind of the future of life on Earth. So to get ourselves responding at an appropriately engaged level, what is it? What is it that I could do? What is it you could do in our own lives to get ourselves into our stretch zone? Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add, I get the pleasure and the privilege of seeing lots of different people engage with the material. And what I always say about the stretch zone is if you're uncomfortable, you're just where you should be. It shouldn't be painful, it shouldn't be traumatizing and triggering, but if it's a little uncomfortable, I invite you to move toward that. That's how I try and orient toward my stretch zone, is if I feel like I'm just at the edge of what I'm comfortable with, I feel like I'm actually growing, I'm learning, I'm engaged with something. So whether it's the material or if you're sharing it with somebody, whatever it is that you think you need to do, how do you get to your stretch zone during the intensive?
And we'll be quiet for a minute so you can think and then post. Again, you'll be able to go back and read. I do want to read you something that somebody posted on a discussion forum. They said, you've got only 3 choices in life. Give up, give in, or give them all you got. And the give them all you got is stretch zone talk. So what would you need to do?
I just saw one that was really concrete. I appreciate it, and that's get comfortable with technology. Keep it concrete, keep it really clear, something that'll help you be more effective in what your commitments are in the world.
So again, this is a personal question to you. This isn't to like the other 129 people on the call. What is it you would need to do? How could you encourage yourself to play for the next month, next 5 weeks in your stretch zone on this topic, which is kind of worth your attention? After you've written, you can read what some of your community members are saying.
I love this one. I'm a doer. Part of my stretch zone is being. This includes the embodiment exercises. I so appreciate somebody speaking to those embodiment exercises, and you really nailed it. They're really to help you be with some of the feelings that emerge in your body and that actually need to get processed as you look into these pretty big issues and big ideas. Well, wonderful.
Another minute. Someone said just being in the course is part of living in my stretch zone.
Great. Well, thank you so much, folks. I say thank you because I'm always touched at the courage, the bravery that people really take in entering your stretch zone. And I'm always actually touched at how often it's sharing, which, on one hand, it's scary and you're putting yourself out there. And on the other, it's this invitation to bring people closer, to bring this journey that you're on closer to other people. So I'm always touched by it. I wanted to talk about talking about the intensive again and talking about money. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, so we mentioned there are 2 live community gatherings. There's this one and at the next, and we have one that closes the course. And I wanted to prepare you and get you thinking about how you might financially support the intensive, and maybe even how you might represent your commitment to what you've gone through in this journey in a financial way. So, everything costs money. This course takes quite a bit of resources to run. We're really committed to offering it to as many people as possible. And one of the ways that we can do that is making sure that we can actually pay the bills. And if people like you really support the intensive moving forward, there are sort of 2 things that I see really emerge in people. One is surprise. surprised at how much the course is actually affecting them. You know, if there's sort of one way to think about this is think of the value that you're getting at it. Think of the resources that are available to you, and you know, even maybe in line with the stretch zone, think of how to represent that that investment and that impact in some way of supporting the course. And the other is, you know, just sort of being in the world in some way and making sure that, you know, as we talk about action, you know, part of that is most definitely activism, proactivism, getting out there and, you know, being out there, as Bill suggested, getting arrested. And, you know, another way of action is how and where you spend your money, and being true with your action out in the political sphere, as well as what organizations or what causes or what online courses you might support, is also a part of that. So I just wanted to sort of plant the seed for you now, because at the end of the course, we'll be making a request really to step into this realm with us. And if you're interested now, there's actually a donate button right on the page, right on the front page of the course. And we'll have a slide as well for you that you can do.
Yeah.
The slide that we'll have actually at the end of the course will give you the URL that you're going to need to donate, but you can always just go to the course and there's a donate button right there.
So, you know, the way we're funding the course currently is it's called voluntary tuition. So we're inviting you to make your voluntary donation as tuition. And at some point we may change it. We may have a hard and fast tuition. We probably won't go back to nothing at all, but that's how the course is being funded, and we invite you to participate responsibly and with great joy in funding this course.
I'll say one more thing. And, you know, I've had a couple of really wonderful emails of people say, you know, I'd love to fund, but I just don't have much money right now. Can I fund you another time? So first off, if you're one of those people, thank you. Thank you for even corresponding and letting us know. And I also want to emphasize that, you know, your donation, you've got to sort out what your donation could be. Maybe it's $5, maybe it's $10, maybe it's $5 a month. Don't forget, you know, we had the last presidential election, we had millions of people donating small quantities, and it actually adds up. You're not alone in this. Together, our impact actually has far more power than alone. So don't think of your $20 as useless. It actually means a lot, especially when multiplied with everybody in the course. So
I think we're coming to the end of our gathering, and we have a couple of announcements.
Yep. So your small group meetings will be happening again starting this Sunday through Tuesday. I've had a couple of questions, so let me just clarify. The new modules are released every Tuesday evening, and that's basically when the last small group meets. Then we make the next round of content available. So you can look out for next Tuesday evening is when the next course, the next module will be released, and that is Grounded Optimism. I hope you like it. Feedback, really crucial to us. We mentioned this in the beginning. We really take it seriously. On the home page of the course is a feedback button. Please use it. You know, if you've got ideas, if you think something could be easier or smoother, you've got questions, it really makes a difference for us. And those are all of the announcements I have.
We will leave the site open. Ariel, can we do it for 10, 15 minutes so that some of you have already been handling kind of relationship business on the chats. Now would be a great time to read anything else that anyone has already posted, or if you want to comment to anybody, you can use this chat function while we're gone. We're building community, you guys, and again, in the feedback we've gotten so far, the understanding that we're not alone, those of us who are as passionately committed as we are and as you are, to realize, no, you aren't alone. You know, there's all of us, and collectively, as Bill was saying, we haven't given up. There's nothing that's happened out in the world that has made us say, it's hopeless, we give up. Au contraire. And the week after next, when we do Grounded Optimism, you'll get even more deeply grounded in a grounded kind of optimism from which we can do this powerful work of game changing. So until next time, enjoy your small meeting group. Enjoy your discussion forums. If it's a stretch zone for you to post on the discussion forum, please do it. Enjoy the readings and the videos. And if you have something you want us all to see, post it to the Great Stuff button. And we'll see you next time.
Which is March 4th.
March
Put it in your calendars. We will see you again March 4th, same time, 5:30 Pacific time. And as Tracy said, we're going to leave the chat logs open for a few minutes, and we will post these as soon as we can get them. You can probably expect them by tomorrow afternoon.
Thanks. Love you guys.
So long, folks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good morning. Good afternoon.